Welcome back, everybody. You are tuned into the Now Morning Show right here on TTT, and we're also on Facebook streaming live. I now throw it across to Ruckus because we're going to be speaking about the recently concluded election process.
Well, during the recently concluded elections and throughout the campaign period, the Picong party provided us with data equipping citizens to make informed decisions. So this morning, I want to welcome Dwayne Swift, the founder and lead development of the Picong party, and Vindev Udit, the co-lead research and data collection of the Picong party. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. How are you?
All right, so Dwayne, let's start with you. Who or what is the Picong party?
Oh boy, the Picong party is this, I want to say this idea that started around the idea of kind of creating this neutralized, centralized database for all data, economic, political, electoral, legislative. I think a lot of youth are really interested in elections and, kind of our political system, but it's just so hard to go through the data and the EBC and go through the data and the central bank to make an informed decision, and again to get that neutral perspective, and that perspective could be sure is neutral. And so that's kind of the birth of the idea of the Picong party, and how we've been executing it so far.
So what was the objective during this election period that just passed? So just to share information?
Yeah, it was this I want to say this combination, the kind of a two-pronged goal. We wanted to kind of get people more interested in politics and in the electoral process.
Mm-hmm.
There's been this kind of waning support, and not only support, I would say waning interest in politics among youth. So the idea was just kind of to encourage people to go out and vote. And then the other pronged approach is kind of like, us three, we just decided to volunteer, and it's kind of a hobby for for all three of us. It's me and Vindev and with one other member, DJ Ringus, who was part of the core team. And it's just like this way for us to kind of, I want to say, give back to the national community, but also, kind of play off our strengths and, kind of compile all this data that we know is there. We know it's there, and most people don't.
Right. So Vindev, can you tell me, I want to get your feedback on the 2020 general election and the recount period, and then the concession from the opposition.
Okay, well, what we saw this election and what it was gearing up to be is the closest election, or arguably the closest election since 2001. That's when it was the 1818 tie.
Right.
So actually, and I have up here, it in many ways it did mirror the 2015 election, but just a slightly closer version to it. So you can actually see across the board, all the marginal seats got even more marginal. We had an increase in the total number of marginal seats, seats won with very tight margins. And you look at I'll call, for example, like La Horquetta, that's usually a little stronger in the PNM stands. That closed in. Seats like San Fernando West and all these seats, they've gotten the margins of victory very much closed in. And of course, we saw it with St. Joseph. Now, it wasn't that much unexpected. What the general results kind of indicates is that there may have been, generally speaking, we vote out the incumbent. That has been the pattern, that the incumbent always tends to suffer in the election. What we saw here was that they lost ground, but they just didn't lose enough ground for the opposition to gain power. So what that maybe represents is that, people might have had their disgruntlements with the government, but it didn't boil over into an outright voting out, as what we have seen in 2015, in 2010. So it did break that trend. And with respect to the recounts, now, I was a bit puzzled at first because the margins of the victories in all these seats, as much as they were tight, the tightest one was St. Joseph, which preliminary, the margin was 811 votes. That's too much for a recount to swing. And some of the others were well into the 2,000 mark. And historically speaking, for a recount to swing anything more than 400, and I think this time it only swung about 100. It takes quite a lot. You can't have a recount that swings an 800 vote seats.
Understandably so. I want to throw back across to Dwayne for a minute. Dwayne, tell me, yesterday we witnessed the swearing in of the new cabinet, and we learned of some new ministries as well as the appointment of some new ministers.
Right.
Can I get your thoughts on what was presented to us yesterday, going forward?
I mean, it was interesting because, looking at the reports, the kind of the predictions people had, a lot of them were wrong. And we see Calm, the Honorable Calm back in Ministry of Finance. Everyone selected Conrad Enel for Ministry of Energy, and we see, I believe, Franklin Kant went over there as well. Instead, I personally was shocked by, and this is comparing with the PNN's manifesto, that there wasn't an outright Ministry of Technology, which is kind of down my alley. But I saw it kind of integrated with public administration. Ministry of Public Administration and
Digital Transformation.
Digital Transformation, there we go. Yeah. And I'm intrigued to see how that goes. But I wish them the best of luck. It's great to see newer members like Renuka and GW being given ministerial roles. Ministers in ministries, but it's great to see that happening. I think it happened with the former mayor of Arima as well, in the Ministry of Education. So it's good to see that happening. And kind of bringing that new generation of politicians into these positions for power. I do think the most interesting thing, and it's kind of stood up a lot of conversation on social media, was the merge of Ministry of Tourism with Arts and Culture. Many people making the call that arts and culture should be on its own. And it's a kind of a downplaying of the importance of arts and culture, but if anything, it does align very closely with what the PNN manifesto kind of put out as this branding of arts and culture, along with our tourism product going forward. So yeah, it's been interesting, and this new Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, definitely one to keep an eye on. I'm intrigued by the national service part, but I'm glad to see it there.
I don't know how to ask this question without being controversial. But I will all right, let's get to the question about what happened after the election period, right? Between the election and yesterday's swearing in, we saw a flare up on social media of racial division and people trying to bully people. But Independence Day some days away. What are your thoughts on that situation, and how can we move forward as a nation? And I want to ask both of you to respond to that question if possible. So let's start with you, Vindev.
Well, I mean, it was very saddening to see, but I think one of the biggest things in terms of us moving forward, at least as a long-term solution, I think it fundamentally comes down to a lack of proper understanding of our history. I mean, we're all, except for the indigenous people, we are all transplanted here from some nation or the other. Many of us, a commonality we were all brought here and had our labor exploited, our economic resources exploited, and we were just here to serve the colonizers' economic plans. And the historians seem to conclude that they pitted us in a divide and rule kind of system in order to maintain their own power, because they knew if we united, then we could have posed a threat to them. So they deliberately ensured there was no harmony between the racial groups. And now that they're gone, it still kind of lingers on. It's almost like their ghost almost kind of haunting us. And the only way we can banish this ghost is to instill a better decolonized version of teaching our history in such a way that we remove the ignorance through education. And it needs to start from as early as primary school, before children have this, because clearly it has to be passed down by parents. So to remove the stigmas, or to counter the stigmas that they may be obtaining in the home, you need to start the education process early and have it continue all the way throughout secondary school. A greater emphasis on teaching Caribbean history and our history as a people. I think that's the best way forward.
Thank you very much, Vindev. Unfortunately, Dwayne, we won't be able to get to your response because we have to leave it there for now. But I want to thank both of you for joining me this morning and continue to do the good work that you're doing, informing the nation and the public about, what's going on and breaking it down as simply as possible, you know what I mean? Thank you very much. That was Dwayne Swift, the founder and lead development for the Picong Party, and Vindev Udit, the co-lead research and data collection of the Picong Party.